one of those kids that people like you would know. He always came to church, always grew up in church. He was here with his parents whenever the doors were open. Sunday school, Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, Wednesdays. Even when the doors weren't open, he was trying to get here. And when he couldn't come, he'd be upset. His parents were involved in high school youth group. And they'd bring him to him sometimes, but when they told him no, he couldn't come, he'd get mad because he liked us. He looked up to these kids that lived this different way with Christ in their lives. And he liked that. And he was all about living the different way that these older people that he looked up to lived. And so as he continued to grow up in the church and continued to look up to these older kids in the high school youth group, he was all about this, and he wanted that. So he started getting older and started getting involved in the junior high youth group and going to church camp. And anytime he'd go to church camp because he loved church camp. And as you get older, church camps get longer and they get more fun and more exciting because you get to do more things. And so going into his 8th grade year, he went to a week at church camp. And it came time in the week for the dean to ask the people if they wanted, to ask the kids there if they wanted to make a decision for Christ. And at things like this, it was a pretty small group of kids, and it's really easy to kind of look around and see if your buddies are doing it, and if they're doing it, you want to do it, but if they're not, you kind of shying away from it and don't want to. But this kid raised his hand, and he wanted this. And so the dean talked with him and his parents and the youth minister to make sure this is what he wanted and not what somebody else wanted. And this is what this kid wanted. He wanted to be baptized, and so he was. And this was the summer going into his 8th grade year. Going into his 8th grade year, he kept living this way, this different way over here. And he was he was strong in that. Well, then he get into high school. Then he started going to high school. And high school is really hard, especially for somebody that lives this different way, because kids are just making fun of you because you don't want to have fun, and you're always going to church and doing different things. So his freshman year went by, and he was shy and timid. So he stayed this way. He stayed over here, and he stayed the good fight as a church kid over here. And then things started to progress, and he started to get more involved in sports, and all the upperclassmen that he shied away from, they were out of here. So they kind of stepped up their class, and so he was getting more involved in school and more involved with friends, and he started dating because that's what high school guys are all about. They want to start dating as soon as they can. So he started dating. Him and all his buddies, they were dating and stuff. He was over here, he started to kind of slowly get away from this. Not much. Nobody could really tell. Not even he could tell at the time. He started to go away. Well, as things kept going, as he went into the sophomore year, he started straying more over here. He still kind of wanted this, but he was really interested in this. He started walking over here and started coming over here more. Well, then he gets into his junior year. Now he's an upperclassman. Now he's up there. He's involved in sports. He's the kid on the court that everybody's watching. He's the kid on the field that everybody's watching. And everybody at this time has their license, so it's so easy to go and do things. Well, him and his buddies, they would go do things on the weekends, after football games, after basketball games. He was really looking over here. He was really concerned about things over here. He didn't want that over there anymore. There was still a little bit in his mind about, this is right, but I don't want this. This isn't fun. He wanted to be over here. Kids nowadays, there's a song out there that's got YOLO in it. You only live once, which is true, because you only do live once. And so what their mindset is they only live once, so you might as well go do crazy stuff, drink, party, and whatnot. And this is what this kid wanted in the story. He wanted to go have fun. He didn't want this anymore. He was completely against this over here. His mind was one track. He would boom, I want to have fun. So this went on, and they kept doing this YOLO stuff. They started drinking, partying, stealing, doing things with girls, pretty much anything a high school kid could do, they did it. And so that it just kept going worse. His grades started going downhill. I mean, he was rock bottom. He was here 100%. His mind, his heart, everything was here. It was completely against that over there. And as his junior year went on, and it kept getting worse, it came time for summer conferences for church. Well, he loved summer conferences. Even though he didn't want this over here, he wanted this, he still wanted to go to the summer conference because he heard they were a lot of fun from the older kids when he was young. And so he was waiting for the opportunity when he got old enough to be able to go to these summer conferences. So he signs up. But he didn't want to go to this summer conference to reconnect and be over here with God. He wanted to go for this stuff over here. These are big summer conferences, so there's a lot of girls. He knew that. So he was going, he's like, oh yeah, this is perfect. This is my opportunity right here. And he just wanted to have fun and get away and just take a week, but he didn't want to reconnect with God over here. So it came time to go to this. In all church trips, y'all know that when you go, you have prep and you have meetings, different things like that. He was going to all these meetings, but he was one track focused. He had his heart and his mind here in this YOLO way of living. He didn't want this different way. So it came time to go, and then they take off on Monday morning. If you would turn to me in your Bibles to Colossians 3, or your iPhone, or computer, or whatever you have. So Paul is writing to the Colossians a letter of encouragement. Paul at this time is in prison. He never got to go visit the Colossians because he was in prison or he was off doing something else somewhere else. So he would send people, send them their way to encourage them and bring them up in faith. Because like the kid in the story, the Colossians were brought up in faith. And so they knew this, and they knew what it was all about. So Paul was just writing a letter, because Paul was well known, just encouraging them. So here in 3:1, we start out with the word since. That's kind of a big word. Might not mean to most people, but to a Bible college student or somebody that's been taught, since is one of those words that there's something before that to make him say since. So what he's talking about before it is not to be scared of being judged, because they live this different way over here. The people were all about the law and all about the rules of the time. When Jesus came, he kind of did things in a different way, a little different, not so much by the law, but his own way. And what Paul's encouraging them is don't be afraid to be judged or to be looked down upon because you live a little different, a little weird compared to what most people do. So here we go. 3:1. Since then, you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. So Paul, writing this letter, he wants to encourage them, like the kid in the story. The kid in the story has heart and mind set on things over here. And once you have your mind set to something, you do that, and your heart's going to follow. And so Paul is encouraging them, to stick this way out. Keep your heart and your mind focused on these things, because you have to die to yourself and give your life to Christ. Your life is hidden with Christ because Christ is in you, and that's what we should do.